friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a little nutrition series. It's going to be all about dairy, and we're going to break it down and talk about, is dairy like good or is it bad for you? Should you be consuming dairy? But first, before we answer that question, I want to educate you on how dairy is processed, because that makes a big difference in when you are deciding if dairy is good for you. So first of all, in America, dairy is highly industrialized and commercialized. When I was over in Europe, there's no factory farming there. Everything is very old school, and the animals are out just roaming around, basically, even on the streets. So they're eating grass, and they are able to just roam around and eliminate and thereby fertilizing that ground for whatever is going to grow there. So that's just a huge piece of it too. So in America, commercial dairy cows are placed on cement floors. They're hooked up to machines. They're forced to produce milk 10 months out of the year. And the average lifespan of a cow is 42 months. So these are commercial, these are factory cows. So these are not cows from your farmer in the middle of like nowhere that you see out just roaming pastures. Okay. The difference is cows that are grass-fed, they're free range, they're in open pasture eating grass. These cows live 12 to 15 years. So that's quite a big difference, because 42 months is only a couple of years as opposed to at least a decade. Factory farming is really devastating, not just on cows, but on our country. So 1/5 of the country's dairy is produced in California. And this operation produces as much waste as a city of 21 million people. And this is actually polluting our rivers, lakes, and streams, because these cows are not able to move. So they've got to somehow take all of the feces from one little area and disperse it somewhere, instead of a cow just grazing pasture and eliminating. Not to mention, factory cows are also fed a diet of corn and soy. Cows are not meant to digest corn and soy. Because they have 4 stomachs, because they regurgitate, they are meant to chew cud. They're meant to be eating grass and really, really breaking down the grass, which makes it more easily digestible for them and literally breaks down all the nutrients. And that's what causes their, basically, when they eliminate, when they poop, like lots of vitamins. So when we have Grandma and Grandpa's farm back in the day, or their little, their garden, well, I mean, what do we use? We use manure, because it is so like beneficial and nutrient, provides a lot of nutrients to help our garden and our vegetables grow really well. Okay, so back to the diet of corn and soy. These 2 things are also heavily sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, and GMOs, which are genetically modified organisms. And this is like 80% of all of the herbicides in the US. So think, okay, this animal is consuming something it's not supposed to. It's also consuming all of these toxins, so that when I consume the milk or the meat from the animal, I'm also consuming that. Like, that's really not healthy for us, is it? According to the U.S. News and World Report, 40 billion pounds a year of slaughterhouse waste, like blood, bone, etc., as well as the remains of dogs and cats, that is passed from vets and animal shelters, are rendered into livestock feed annually. Yeah, that's disgusting. So we're not even feeding cows grass anymore. They're just eating the remains of dead animals. animal feed manufacturers and farmers have been testing out dehydrated food garbage, which is basically fats emptied from restaurants and grease traps. And researchers are also experimenting with hog and human sewage as well. So basically, we are now looking into recycling feces. So the cow is now eating shit. That's just disgusting. Manufacturers do this to actually fatten up cows as quickly as possible to produce as much milk as possible. So it all comes down to money, of course. So this eating of shit literally leads to a sick and unhealthy animal that needs a really heavy dose of antibiotics and drugs. So these factory cows are actually given antibiotics from the time that they're born until they are slaughtered. So by the time we get the milk that is processed from them, it is containing up to 80 different antibiotic strains. So antibiotic resistance, anyone? Like, this is not what we need. We don't need to be pumping our bodies full of antibiotics because it just causes an imbalance of bacteria in our body. So you're having more bad bacteria than healthy bacteria in our body, which also may be the reason why our guts are so destroyed here in America. That's just one theory that I have. Okay, so let's move on. So let's look through time. In 1930, an average cow produced just 12 pounds of milk, which was about 1.5 gallons per day. In 1988, the average cow produced 39 pounds of milk a day. So this was all accomplished through selective breeding of cows that was produced, that helped them produce more hormones. And now today, a lot of times you'll see the RBGH, which is a synthetic growth hormone. This hormone actually is used to make cows produce up to 50 pounds of milk per day. So this synthetic growth hormone is devastating for a cow. It causes birth defects, reproductive difficulties, mastitis, digestive problems, foot and leg lesions. And the milk from these cows also contains pus and healthy bacteria. So that is why we pasteurize our milk. So pasteurization. Let's do a little lesson in what pasteurization is. It is the process of heating or heat treating milk in order to kill bacteria. So Louis Pasteur invented this technique for beer and wine originally. It was not created, it was not intended for milk. So they started using pasteurization to actually cover up dirty milk. So as dairy and milk became more and more commercialized, the need for pasteurization became necessary for dairies to basically increase their profits. So then they start telling the public and convincing them like, hey, pasteurization is safer than raw milk, because they're blaming raw milk for all these diseases and outbreaks that are happening. But did you know that actually raw milk that's from a smaller grass-fed farm and free-range cows, it actually contains beneficial bacteria that prevents the growth of dangerous organisms. So it's kind of like in your own body. We always have bacteria in our body, and it's this balance of good bacteria and bad bacteria. And so you want more good bacteria than bad bacteria so that the good can go to work and keep the bad kind of under control, so to speak. Okay, so moving on here, pasteurized milk has a 66% loss of vitamins A, D, and E. Vitamin C has a loss of over 50%. Heat affects these water-soluble vitamins, making them 50 to 80% less effective. The vitamins B6 and B12 found in milk are also completely destroyed through pasteurization. Not only does it destroy these important vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins, it destroys enzymes, antibodies, and hormones, and also lipase, which is an enzyme that actually helps our body break down fat. So this missing lipase in our milk also inhibits our ability to metabolize fat and absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A and D. So the dairy industry knows this, and that's why they have added vitamin D back into milk. You'll see it all the time on like organic milk, whole milk, vitamin D added back in. Why? Because it's been like killed. It's been taken out from pasteurization. Pasteurization also causes calcium and other minerals to be less available. It destroys phosphatase, which is necessary for the absorption of calcium. Okay, so we've talked about pasteurization. Now we're going to talk a little bit about ultra pasteurization, because I know you've seen it on like organic whole milk. They say, you know, ultra high pasteurization. Oh, well, ultra, that must mean better, right? That's what I originally thought until I really started studying real milk for the first time and introducing it into my own diet. Excuse me. So ultra pasteurization is the heating of milk at a higher temperature and for a longer period of time. So it's actually worse. It's required because many organisms have become resistant and survive regular pasteurization. Again, antibiotic resistance. It may increase shelf life, but it makes milk taste almost completely sterile and tasteless. This milk can actually be unrefrigerated until open. So it doesn't even need to be refrigerated because it is that sterile. Okay, so we've talked about pasteurization. Let's talk about homogenization. What is homogenization? So milk straight from the cow produces cream that is naturally going to rise to the top. So if you've gotten milk from like a local farmer, you'll notice that there's like that cream on top that's so good. And you kind of like shake it up, or maybe you just pour it into your coffee. I like to use that. So that's what happens naturally. But homogenization breaks up these fat globules and evenly distributes it throughout the milk. So you have that store-bought milk is there's no like cream in there. There's no fat globules. It's just a really thin milk, right? So this process actually increases the surface area of fat, and it is exposed to air, which allows oxidation to occur. So what is the result? It actually increases susceptibility to spoilage, and it is also linked to heart disease and atherosclerosis. Sorry, I can't say that one. So basically it's causing heart disease, which is kind of ironic because they're saying fat is what causes heart disease these days, right? Not sugar, it's definitely fat. Fat is terrible for you, which is all bogus. Our body needs fat. Anyways, that's a video for another time. So it's no wonder that dairy has been linked to diseases like asthma, allergic reactions, sinus and ear infections, a sore, scratchy throat, obesity, osteoporosis, cancer of the breast, ovaries, and prostate cancer. Okay, so I was totally one of those people who avoided dairy for years. I could not have dairy, any kind of dairy, because I would break out in hormonal acne here. I would get the sore, scratchy throat. I would get the phlegm really bad, and I suffered from chronic sinus infections. When I was just 5, 6 years old, I had my tonsils taken out because I had repetitive what do you call that? Tonsillitis, like strep throat. And so like my parents were like, okay, we got to take them out. So You know, as a kid, I had the standard American diet, like pretty unhealthy, honestly. And so as I got older and started studying like nutrition from top nutrition schools, you know, they're all like, oh, everything's been leaning more towards like veganism these days. And it's definitely, it's an agenda. And then over time, I've realized that, you know, cutting out dairy, you know, even though it helped for a time, there really is no substitute for dairy. I tried almond milk for a while. But then I would get these horrible stomach pains. I would feel bloated. And then come to find out, I'm allergic to almonds because I've been drinking almond milk for years. Soy. Soy is horrible for your hormones. Like, please don't drink soy milk. What else can you use? Soy. Now there's oat milk, which just makes me gain weight like no other. There's just no proper substitute for dairy. So my thoughts, my opinion, dairy in and of itself is not harmful. Dairy is the most nutritious whole food that you can consume, okay? Nutrient dense, full of healthy fats for your brain, vitamins A, D, and E, which like most Americans are deficient in. Go figure. We are suffering from osteoporosis. We can't absorb calcium. These B vitamins. I mean, we're deficient in B vitamins. Like this food is nutritious for us. What do we do when we're born? We drink milk, right? I breastfed my daughter because that was the best thing for her. So milk is not the problem. What the problem is people and how they're processing dairy. So growing up, because I avoided dairy for so long, I did become lactose intolerant, right? Oh, and that's another thing I should mention. When you're heating dairy, so you're pasteurizing dairy, it's killing that lipase, which is, or lactose. It's killing the enzyme that is needed for your body to be able to break down the lactate, okay, or the lactose. So that's why people become lactose intolerant. But if they were to drink whole milk that's not been pasteurized, homogenized, they would not have problems with their body breaking down milk. Like, but for some reason, like, we have to commercialize it and we have to make all this money and destroy people's health in the process. So anyway, the solution is not to boycott conventional dairy. It's not to go out and drink almond milk because that's not helping your body either. So any dairy that's sold in the grocery store, that means that it is all pasteurized and it's all homogenized, even the organic whole milk. It will say on there, pasteurized, homogenized, ultra pasteurized. None of it is good because you know why? It is illegal to sell raw milk in the United States. So I think what we need to do as a country, as a society in America, is to go back to old times where we supported local farmers who let their cows out to pasture and they ate grass, which is what they were meant to eat because it's so nutrient dense. So that's just my 2 cents. So you can go to realmilk.com to find a local farmer near you, support them, and try it for yourself. Try the cream, try the milk. It is so good. You won't be disappointed. So I think if you try it, just try a little bit at a time and see how your body reacts. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but I guarantee you, if you slowly add it into your diet, and say you have healed your digestive system, I guarantee you that you will notice a lot of good things happening in your body. I noticed I did. It was like I came back to life because I came off a vegan diet that sent me to the ER twice in 6 months, and really effed up my hormones. And the dairy and the fat just really helped synchronize all my hormones and help me feel better. So I support a local farmer, and that's where I get my milk. Yes, it may be a little more inconvenient, but I'm supporting a local farmer. I'm supporting my community, and I'm feeding my body nutritious food. So that's what I encourage you to do. I don't like to tell people what to do, what not to do. I just like to give them information and have them decide what's best for themselves. So anyway, I think that was a little long-winded, but this is something I'm super passionate about. So I'll be coming out with another nutrition series subject. I don't know, in a week or two. But thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.